Everyone, today I want to talk about something we've all encountered at some point in life. The realization that not everyone in our circle genuinely cares about us. It can be painful, confusing, and sometimes shocking. But recognizing the behaviors of people who don't truly value us is an important step towards self-respect and emotional freedom. There are people in your life who will only reach out when they need something, a favor, a connection, your time, your energy, or even just emotional support. These individuals are not invested in the relationship itself. They are invested in what you can do for them. When you examine your interactions closely, you might realize they never check in just to see how you're doing. They rarely initiate conversations unless they're seeking help or looking to unload their own problems. They might disguise their intentions under the pretense of friendship, but their patterns speak volumes. You'll find that when you're going through something or simply need someone to talk to, they're unavailable, distant, or distracted. Yet the moment they encounter a challenge or need something fixed, you suddenly become important to them. It's not always dramatic or obvious. Sometimes it's subtle, like always needing advice, but never being there to listen when you need to vent. Over time, this one-sided dynamic can leave you feeling used and emotionally drained. You start to feel like your role in their life is purely functional, not emotional. The relationship begins to feel transactional, as if your worth is measured by your usefulness, not your presence. When you stop being available or start saying no, their interest in you tends to fade quickly, revealing the superficial nature of their concern. People who genuinely care about you will want to be around you regardless of what you can offer. Those who only appear when they need something are revealing the true value they place on you, and unfortunately, it's not based on care, but on convenience. When someone truly cares about you, your wins feel like their wins. They light up when you achieve something meaningful and offer genuine words of praise and encouragement. But people who don't care often respond to your success with silence, indifference, or subtle negativity. You might notice them brushing off your good news, changing the subject, or offering compliments that feel forced or insincere. At times, they may even try to downplay your achievements, making comments like, "That's not a big deal," or shifting the focus back to themselves by one-upping your story. These reactions don't come from a place of support, they come from discomfort, jealousy, or apathy. What's missing is the enthusiasm that a caring person naturally shows when someone they value reaches a milestone. This kind of behavior can be especially painful because you expect your friends or loved ones to be part of your joy. It hurts when you share something important to you, and instead of celebration, you're met with coldness or dismissiveness. Over time, you might start withholding your successes because you no longer feel safe or supported sharing them. You start to notice that they're never the first to congratulate you or the ones who encourage you when you're chasing a goal. Instead, they only seem emotionally invested when you're struggling or in a place where they can feel superior or more secure. Their lack of joy for your growth is a loud message. They are not truly invested in your well-being, only in maintaining their comfort or control within the relationship. Respect is one of the clearest indicators of care, and when someone repeatedly disrespects your time or boundaries, it becomes a strong sign that they don't value you as much as they should. You may start to notice patterns. They cancel plans at the last minute without any real reason, show up late with no apology, or expect you to drop everything the moment they need something. These behaviors may seem small at first, but over time they reveal a larger issue. Your time, energy, and personal space aren't being taken seriously. You could spend hours rearranging your schedule to accommodate them, only for them to disregard the effort you've made without even acknowledging it. The lack of respect for your boundaries is just as damaging. You might express discomfort with certain topics, actions, or situations, and yet they continue to push, ignore, or mock those boundaries as if they don't matter. When you try to say no or draw a line, you're met with guilt-tripping, manipulation, or irritation. Instead of understanding or asking how they can better respect you, they make you feel like you're being difficult, overreacting, or overly sensitive. Over time, this causes a deep sense of imbalance and resentment in the relationship. You begin to feel like your needs and preferences are invisible, like you're constantly bending to accommodate someone who refuses to do the same for you. People who genuinely care about you will notice your limits and adjust accordingly. They will value your time because they value you. When someone repeatedly ignores those signals, it's because they prioritize their convenience over your comfort. They don't take the time to ask how you feel or to consider how their actions affect you, and that lack of consideration speaks volumes. Whether they're aware of it or not, they are sending a message that your boundaries are optional and that your time is theirs to waste. That's not care, it's control, and it's a warning sign that the relationship is one-sided. One of the most damaging behaviors someone can show when they don't truly care about you is the tendency to gaslight or minimize your emotions. This can come in many forms, some obvious and some very subtle, but the core of it is the same. Your feelings are made to seem invalid, exaggerated, or simply wrong. When you express that something hurt you or that you feel uncomfortable, instead of being met with empathy or understanding, you're told that you're too sensitive, overreacting, or making a big deal out of nothing. These statements don't just dismiss your experience, they slowly cause you to question your own reality. You may start wondering whether you are being dramatic, whether your needs are unreasonable, or if your memory of events is somehow flawed. Gaslighting doesn't always happen through direct confrontation. Sometimes it's more passive. A shrug, a sarcastic laugh, a rolled eye, or a conversation that quickly gets redirected when your emotions start to surface. Over time, you may find that expressing how you feel becomes increasingly difficult. You start staying silent about the things that bother you, bottling up pain, and trying to keep the peace, because you know that when you open up, it won't be met with care, it will be deflected or denied. And in the worst cases, they twist your words or intentions, making you feel guilty for even speaking up. You go from being the one who was hurt to the one who feels like they did something wrong just for feeling. This kind of behavior creates a deeply unhealthy emotional environment. It erodes trust, weakens your sense of self, and makes emotional closeness impossible. When someone truly cares about you, they want to understand you, even if they don't always agree with you. They take your feelings seriously, because they take you seriously. But when someone minimizes or gaslights, they're not only refusing to acknowledge your emotions, they're also protecting themselves from having to take responsibility for how their actions affect you. They prioritize their comfort over your truth. And in doing so, they show you exactly where you stand in their list of priorities, nowhere near the top dot. When someone genuinely cares about you, they make an effort to understand who you are beyond the surface. They pay attention to what makes you smile, what stresses you out, what your goals are, and even how you express love or pain. They want to know what's happening in your world, not because they're nosy, but because your inner life matters to them. In contrast, people who don't care tend to stay emotionally distant. They engage in conversations only when it suits them, or when it circles back to their own interests. They rarely ask thoughtful questions about your feelings, your experiences, your perspective. If they do, it's often shallow or short-lived, the kind of attention that disappears the moment the topic shifts away from them. This lack of interest isn't always obvious at first. It might show up as them forgetting important things you told them, zoning out when you're speaking, or interrupting you to change the subject to something they'd rather talk about. You start to feel like your words fall flat, like you're speaking to someone who's physically present but emotionally unavailable. Over time, you realize that they've never really tried to get to know who you are beneath the surface, your dreams, your fears, your history, your failures. And when conflicts or misunderstandings happen, instead of trying to see things from your point of view, they quickly dismiss it, label you as difficult, or shift blame entirely. It can feel incredibly lonely to be around someone who constantly shows you that your inner world doesn't matter. You begin to second-guess whether you're asking for too much, whether expecting curiosity, empathy, or connection is unreasonable. But the truth is, it's not. Being understood is a basic emotional need in any meaningful relationship, and when someone makes no effort to understand you, it's often because they're not emotionally invested enough to care. They may enjoy your company, your help, your presence, but they don't seek to connect with the real you. And that kind of shallow connection leaves you feeling more isolated than being alone ever could. One of the clearest signs that someone doesn't truly care about you is when they choose to talk about you behind your back instead of addressing things directly to your face. When there's an issue, a misunderstanding, or even just something they don't like about you, they avoid having an honest conversation with you. Instead, they vent to others, spread gossip, or share private matters that should have stayed between you two. This kind of behavior shows a complete lack of respect and maturity, and it creates a toxic environment of distrust and speculation. Rather than giving you the chance to explain yourself, clarify a situation, or even apologize if needed, they paint their own version of the story elsewhere, often leaving you completely unaware or confused. What makes this even more damaging is that it creates a double life in the relationship. To your face, they may act friendly, supportive, or indifferent, but behind the scenes, they're criticizing you, mocking your choices, or making you the subject of conversations you're not part of. This kind of two-faced behavior makes it impossible to build real trust. You start to feel anxious around mutual friends or social circles, wondering who's been told what or how you've been portrayed. Even if the things they're saying aren't cruel, the fact that they couldn't say them to you directly reveals their lack of care and emotional honesty. People who genuinely care about you don't let problems fester in secret. They come to you with respect, even when the topic is uncomfortable. It's also telling when someone constantly discusses other people's flaws or drama behind their backs, because chances are they're doing the same to you. If they're always quick to tear others down in private, it's not loyalty or honesty. It's a habit of avoiding real connection and accountability. And when you eventually find out what's been said about you, it doesn't just hurt, it breaks something essential in the relationship. You no longer feel safe. You no longer feel seen. The foundation of trust starts to crack, and it becomes hard to believe anything they say, even the kind or supportive things. A caring person doesn't avoid hard conversations, they choose connection over comfort. They don't weaponize your vulnerability or talk behind your back to gain attention, sympathy, or control. When someone refuses to communicate with you directly but talks freely about you to others, they're showing you that preserving your dignity and the relationship isn't a priority for them. And once that respect is gone, the emotional bond quickly follows. One of the most revealing moments in any relationship is not during times of celebration or laughter, but in the quiet, heavy, and painful spaces when life becomes difficult. Whether you're grieving, struggling with your mental health, going through a loss, or just having a hard time coping, the people who truly care about you will show up in those moments, not always with the perfect words, but with presence, support, and genuine concern. In contrast, people who don't truly care will often disappear when you're not your usual cheerful or useful self. They may suddenly become distant, stop responding to your messages, or act uncomfortable with your vulnerability. They might even make you feel like a burden for needing them, subtly suggesting that you're being too emotional, too negative, or too much to handle. When someone is never around during your low points, it becomes clear that their presence in your life is conditional. They enjoy your energy when you're doing well, when you're fun to be around, or when you can give something, but when you need care, patience, or emotional depth, they vanish. It's in those quiet, difficult times when you need someone to just listen, to check in, or to remind you that you're not alone, and their absence speaks louder than any excuse they might give later. Even worse, some people will reappear only once you've recovered, pretending like nothing happened, trying to slide back into your life without ever acknowledging that they abandoned you when you needed them the most. What's even more painful is that this kind of behavior can make you question your worth. You start to wonder if you're asking for too much just by needing someone to be there. You might hesitate to reach out the next time you're hurting because you've already learned who won't show up. But the truth is, needing support during hard times isn't weakness, it's human. And people who truly care will understand that. They won't always have the perfect solution or the right words, but they'll be present. They'll make time. They'll check in. People who disappear when you're down aren't just avoiding your pain, they're avoiding the responsibility of being a real friend, a real partner, or a real presence in your life. And that absence, more than anything, tells you what you need to know about how much they actually care. Relationships, in their healthiest form, are meant to nourish us, to provide a sense of connection, comfort, support, and mutual growth. When you spend time with someone who truly cares about you, you often leave the interaction feeling seen, understood, and appreciated. Even during tough conversations or serious moments, there's still an undercurrent of safety and warmth. But when someone doesn't genuinely care about you, the energy dynamic is completely different. You might find yourself constantly walking on eggshells around them, feeling like you have to monitor your words, manage their emotions, or shrink parts of yourself just to maintain peace. After spending time with them, instead of feeling supported or refreshed, you feel emotionally drained, mentally exhausted, and even a little more unsure of yourself than before. This kind of emotional fatigue isn't always easy to pinpoint at first. You might blame yourself for being too sensitive or think you're just having an off day. But if it happens repeatedly, if every interaction leaves you feeling less than unimportant or emotionally used, it's not about the day, it's about the dynamic. People who don't care about you tend to take more than they give. They dominate conversations, center everything around themselves, disregard your needs, or subtly undermine your confidence. You could spend the entire time listening to their problems, offering advice, or helping them process their emotions, only to realize they never asked about yours. And if you do try to open up, they may rush you, interrupt you, or steer the topic back to something they'd rather talk about. Over time, this kind of relationship can start to wear you down. You might begin to feel like your presence doesn't matter unless you're providing something: attention, validation, solutions, or entertainment. Your emotional needs go unnoticed, and your attempts to be vulnerable feel like they fall on deaf ears. Instead of being a source of strength or peace in your life, this person becomes a source of tension. You start to feel like you're carrying the emotional weight of the relationship on your own. The connection starts to feel more like an obligation or a drain than something you genuinely look forward to. The truth is, your energy is a powerful indicator of how someone makes you feel. When you constantly leave an interaction feeling worse than you did before, that is your body and mind trying to tell you something important. People who truly care about you may not always say the perfect things or act flawlessly, but they will never consistently leave you feeling empty, invisible, or worn out. When someone truly values you, their presence lifts you, it doesn't pull you down. Support in a meaningful relationship isn't something that should be conditional or selective. It's not about showing up only when it's easy, fun, or personally beneficial. True care is proven in the moments when showing up is inconvenient, when it requires effort, sacrifice, or stepping out of one's comfort zone. But people who don't genuinely care about you often fail to show up unless everything aligns with their schedule, mood, or interests. They may give excuses, delay responses, or make you feel like their presence is a favor rather than an act of friendship or love. Their involvement in your life feels transactional, like your needs are placed on a waiting list, to be addressed only if and when it suits them. This pattern becomes especially clear during moments when you need support the most. Maybe it's a stressful day, a personal crisis, an important event, or even a time when you simply need company. They're often missing in action, unreachable, or too busy with something they claim is more urgent, which more often than not isn't. They rarely go out of their way for you, and if they do, they make sure you know it, as if it's a burden they're tolerating. Their help is often accompanied by a sense of reluctance, as if your needs are secondary or somehow bothersome. You start to notice that your milestones, emergencies, or emotional check-ins are never met with the kind of reliability and consistency you offer them. And what's more damaging is when they show up for others, enthusiastically and without hesitation, while consistently making you feel like an afterthought. This kind of inconsistent presence chips away at trust over time. It's not just about being physically absent, it's about the message it sends. When someone doesn't show up unless it's easy for them, it communicates that their comfort is more important than your well-being. It shows that they value convenience over connection and self-interest over mutual care. You begin to internalize the feeling that you can't count on them, which can leave you feeling isolated even when you're technically not alone. It creates a kind of quiet resentment, not out of entitlement, but because everyone deserves to feel like they matter to the people they care about. A person who genuinely values you doesn't wait until it's convenient to be there. They make time. They put in the effort. They recognize that love, friendship, and support sometimes require discomfort, sacrifice, or rearranged priorities. When someone consistently fails to do that for you, it's not just forgetfulness or busyness. It's a reflection of where you stand in their life. And it's important to pay attention to that, not with bitterness, but with the clarity needed to protect your peace and invest your energy where it's truly respected. One of the most significant and telling behaviors of someone who doesn't truly care about you is the way they consistently disregard your needs while always putting their own first. In any healthy relationship, there should be a balance between give and take, and understanding that both people's needs and desires are important and should be considered. However, when someone doesn't care about you, they make it clear, often without saying a word, that your needs don't matter in the same way their own do. They might listen to your concerns or desires in the moment, but they rarely act on them. They might even agree with you or express empathy, but when it comes time to make a decision, support you, or show up in the way you need, they choose their convenience, preferences, or priorities over yours. This behavior can show up in many ways, some of which might be subtle at first. They might constantly make plans without considering your schedule, invite you to events without asking if you want to go, or expect you to always adjust to their agenda. When you bring up how you feel, Whether it's that you're not being considered or that you need something from them, they may respond with defensiveness, irritation, or dismissiveness, often turning the conversation back to how your needs are inconveniencing them. It becomes a pattern where your feelings, preferences, or well-being are an afterthought in their eyes. It's as though your role in the relationship is to serve or accommodate them, and any time you ask for the same in return, it's seen as an unreasonable demand. At times, these individuals may claim they're too busy, tired, or overwhelmed to help you or consider your needs, all the while making time for their own desires or interests. If they do occasionally offer assistance, it often comes with strings attached, as if they're doing you a favor, and the entire transaction needs to be acknowledged or appreciated on their terms. Their inability to reciprocate support, especially when it requires sacrifice or selflessness, shows that they view the relationship as one-sided. They might be willing to give when it costs them little, but when it involves true effort, they'll quickly back out or make excuses. Over time, this kind of dynamic wears you down. It makes you feel small, unimportant, and invisible. You begin to question whether your needs are too much or if you're being unreasonable for wanting someone to consider you in the same way you consider them. You might find yourself constantly adjusting, compromising, and sacrificing your own desires in an attempt to keep the peace or avoid confrontation, but that never feels like a fair exchange. The relationship becomes more about them using you as a resource or emotional support, rather than about mutual respect and genuine care. When someone consistently disregards your needs while prioritizing their own, it's not just about selfishness, it's about a fundamental lack of respect and understanding. They fail to see that relationships thrive on balance and empathy. They only value what they can get out of the relationship and see little reason to offer anything in return, except when it suits them. It's important to recognize this behavior early, because constantly being in a relationship where your needs don't matter can be emotionally exhausting and damaging in the long term. The inability or unwillingness to truly see and respond to the needs of others is a sign that they may never be able to offer you the care, attention, or consideration you deserve. 4 Mini.